Okay, so where to begin? Before I quit my job to do the van life, I was an analyst. I especially liked the part of being an analyst where you got to visualize the data and tell a story with it. And for work, that really meant line graphs and bar graphs and KPI reports. But then once I started looking more into it with all this free time, there's like this whole other world of data viz. I read this book, Data Sketches. Those two girls, they got me going. Nadi Bremer and Shirley Wu. And I started researching like how they do their projects. Most of what they use is this language called D3, which is a JavaScript library. And yeah, I started to like teach myself how to do it. And I'm definitely a beginner, but I do know enough now that I can like picture what I want to make and then actually code it. So Ben has been along for this journey with me of me telling him all about all these things I'm getting excited about. When he turned 30 recently, I thought, what a good present to give him. Ben has lived in all sorts of different places, so I figured I could make him something that, yeah, visualized that and showed all the different places he's lived throughout his 30 years of life. At first glance, you're like, it's just a big geometric pattern, but this is how it's organized. So he was born in March, so it goes March, April, May, June, July, blah, blah, blah. And then each row is a year of life. So the very first top row is his first year, and then the bottom row is his 30th year. Each symbol and color represents a different place that he's lived. I figured that maybe it would be fun if I did a video going through the process of how I made it, because I think this stuff is interesting. So there's gotta be other people out here that think this is interesting. For this video, I'm gonna make one for my own years, and I just turned 28, so it's not gonna be my 30 years of life, but it'll be close. Okay, so the vibe I'm going for here is that you are my coworker and we're just like having a quick chat because I'm showing you how to do something. Let's just say here's the date and then this is the place that we live in. So I start in May 1994. Okay, then the cool thing about this is that if you just drag it down, it's gonna autofill each month. But we just gotta bring it down to, whoop, way too far, way too far. Okay. Wow, I wonder if this is gonna be hard. Okay, well, I was born in Pataskala, Ohio. Pataskala. I don't really want our date data to be structured like that. So I'm gonna say month, and then you can just do an Excel formula like this. Here. I just wanna have it separated out. So now we have all our data in here. So first I'm just gonna save this as an Excel because I wanna have this as an Excel. But what we want it as is a CSV file. So I'm gonna do the exact same thing, but I'm gonna pick CSV. So now we have it as a CSV, but Shirley Wu, who's taught me everything I know, she was a software engineer. So she likes to deal with everything in JSONs. So you can easily change it from a CSV to JSON. So now, I mean, I don't really know much about JSONs, but each row is now like a little chunk. Date, place, month, year, you know? But now what we need to do, so we're gonna be coding like on the web. So we want the internet to be able to have access to this file. So we're just gonna copy this and save it into GitHub. Creating an account on here is free if you don't already have one, but so you just create an account and then you can go to your gists. Then you can just upload it into here. I'm gonna say Aaron's years and then paste. Wow, this is gonna be a long video, huh? I wonder how I'm gonna edit this. So now we're just gonna kind of save this for later. We are going to use Observable, which lets you use D3 without having to type an entire JavaScript web page. So you can kind of practice and get to know D3 and even get the output of the image. But yeah, you don't have to code like the whole web page. So here we go. We're gonna create a notebook and call it Aaron's years. So then each time you press the plus sign, you get a little new chunk that you can write things in. Oh, it's asking you. Okay, we're gonna do JavaScript. So, okay, if you think about a bar graph, let's say, even if you're making an Excel, like you have the data and then you tell Excel, like, make me a bar graph, but the code way underneath that that's telling the computer, like, take this data and make it into a square. Think of D3 as like a language of doing that. And then also it's so flexible that you can kind of like, instead of a square, it could be like a sunflower, or you can really just like tell it to do whatever you want. The first step to kind of like accessing this language and understanding how to manipulate it and how to make it flexible is the idea of a path. A path is like telling it what shape you want it to be. So you're telling the computer, okay, here, I'll show you an example. So we're gonna call this first one square path. Picture that the canvas that you're working with, the 0, 0 coordinate is at the top left. So we're gonna say move to 0, 0, and then we're going for a square right now. So we're gonna draw a line to 20, 0. Because like X, Y, you know? So 20, 0, and then we're gonna do another line to 20, 20. And then we're gonna say a line to 0, 20. And then a line to 0, 0. Right? Okay, yeah. So that is like our path. Now we need to tell the computer, draw the path. And we're gonna say HTML, and we want an SVG. So scalable vector graphic. And like whenever you say something in HTML, you need to say like, okay, now I'm done with that, and you slash it. So first we're making SVG. Within the SVG, we're drawing our path. And then within this little path thing, you can define things about the path. So D is how you're drawing. I don't know if that's how what it actually stands for, but that's how I say it in my head. So we're gonna say D, and then in quotes, we're gonna say, just look at our square path up there that we just drew. And then we're gonna say the fill, you can make it black. Did I do it wrong? Oh, okay. Before the squiggles, you need to say $, because then the computer knows, oh, I'm looking at a variable. So there we go. There's our little square. And then if you want to make this, like right now we have our SVG is kind of big and annoying. So I'm just going to say width equals 20, height equals 20. So now it's not like taking up our screen. Okay, so technically you saw those shapes with Ben in Ben's drawing, and Shirley Wu, I'm telling you, she could draw all those without even thinking about it. But for me, going through my head and like drawing all these paths, it would take forever. So I was like, there's got to be an easier way to do this. So if you want to say SVG path creator. Look how cool. So you can have these funky shapes, and then it tells you what your path is gonna be right here. You see? It takes all the freaking hard work out of it. So let's redraw our square, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. That's at 8. Okay, we want 20. Okay, cool. And then you say insert line 2. Oh, so we didn't even have to do that last line too. But anyway, then you can copy the path from there. So this is what I did for all the other shapes. I did like, okay, now we're gonna do a triangle, and then I got all of this. This is the observable that I used for Ben's. So I did a square, I did a diamond, I did a triangle to the right, a triangle to the left. You see what I'm saying? So the circle, look at that monster. Half circles. I'm just gonna copy these so I don't have to, I already did it so I don't have to do it again. Also, everything I do in this video, there might be easier ways to do it. As I said, I'm a beginner, so follow at your own risk. Okay, so we have 12 unique paths. Now, we are going to create a group of them. So we're gonna call it my paths equals an array. So now we just list them out. L try path, L circ path, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we have our paths, but now we need to link these to our places that we've lived. So it's time to bring our data into the program. Okay, so we've just been messing around with JavaScript, but now we're probably gonna enter the world of D3. So we say require, I don't know why that tells it that it needs it, but it does. Look, it's like entering in all this other stuff that we're gonna need later. Pretty cool. And then another thing that Shirley Wu always uses is Lodash. So we're gonna say wire Lodash. So that's another library. Okay, so our data is in JSON. So I'm gonna call it JSON URL. This is like a variable I'm making up, equals quote, and now we go back to our gist. And we say raw. Okay, so this is like a web page that's just full of our raw data. So I'm gonna copy this URL and paste it in there. Okay. So our data for this whole project is gonna equal, so this is gonna be a D3 command, D3.json, and then we say JSON URL, our little link. You can paste this link right in there, but it's just cleaner when you do it like this, so that's what I did. Okay, so we're saying our variable that we just made up data is gonna equal this JSON, and then bam, it's literally all in there. I don't understand how this can work, but it just does. Okay, this is just some syntax that I don't even know what's what, but this is what's happening. We're gonna say dot then data values data. Maybe when it's in a JSON, it's not like really getting the values. We're just seeing them as objects, and that's taking the values out of the data. I don't know, but that's just something that goes there. Okay, now we're like really getting into the coding part of it. So this is gonna be fun. This is gonna be like the big chunk of code that's gonna say like, okay, we're taking the data, we're linking it to the paths, we're making it colorful and beautiful, and then poof. So yeah, get ready. So it goes in these squiggle brackets. And the first chunk that we're doing is just defining some constants. So we have our width is gonna be 500, height is gonna be 800. There's gonna be like a variable space that we're gonna use later. And then our main SVG that we're gonna draw all of this into, because like, you know, above our SVG is just a path. Now our SVG is gonna be like all these different things in it. So we're telling the DOM to draw an SVG for us, and it's gonna be the height and the width that we're classifying, and then we're calling it SVG. So this is like, this could be my SVG if you wanted it to, but we're just gonna call it SVG. Okay, so one thing about me is I love to make notes in my code, because like if you just code without putting in these notes, then you go back to look at it and you're like, what does this even mean? So that's why I labeled this first section constants, and then the next section is gonna be calculations. So that is stuff that we're gonna do, that we're gonna need later on. So I'm just gonna leave that section there because it'll make more sense to do that when we actually need it. And then section 3 is gonna be transform data. Okay, so basically our data that we have up above is still not ready for D3 to like handle it. We're transforming our data that's just like the simple data into our build data that's gonna tell it how to build these shapes and what to build. You know? You catching the drift? You'll get it if you don't get it yet. So we're gonna create this new variable called my build data. So this is just gonna take our data and do stuff to it. Okay, so this is where we use Lodash. So map our data. We're saying take each D, which is like the chunk, and then gonna return something. And whatever we return, that's gonna be my build data. So one at a time, it's gonna go through all our little chunks of data and it's gonna return something else. So if you think about it, we have each month, we want to draw a shape. And we need to know first where on the page to draw that shape, and then second, what shape it should even be. So those are three main variables. The first one is gonna be X position on the page, the Y position on the page, let's say like the place index. Okay, so we're taking the place that we lived and then we're gonna index it to say, okay, it should be a square, it should be a circle, it should be whatever. To start, let's forget about the place index and just do the position. So we're gonna say X position equals, for now, let's just say d.month, because the month goes across the top. And then Y position is gonna be d.year. 1994, we want it to be the first row. So let's say minus 1993. We want 1994 to equal 1. Yeah. And I mean, this isn't gonna be perfect, but I think a good way to code is to get like at least something on the page, and then you can go in and kind of like, you can kind of like just, I'm getting tired. You can kind of go in and put in more specifics and stuff after that. Okay, so yeah, okay, now we're gonna do the last section, which is drawing. For some reason you need to name this. So let's say variable drawing. Let's say my drawing. D3.select. And we're gonna select the SVG. And this is the SVG from up here that we just did. So we're saying grab the SVG, and then we're gonna say, this is weird, select all G. And if you aren't familiar with HTML, the SVG might have groups in it, and it doesn't because we just created it and it's empty, but this is just the syntax for doing it. So we're selecting all the groups, and then we're gonna say data is gonna be my build data, and then dot enter. Yeah. Okay. So now our data is like sitting there, but it's not being drawn with. We are going to append the page. Okay, so what we know about paths from before is that, okay, so remember when we drew this path and we said that D equals, and then we gave it a path? So similarly, we need to give it an attribute that is D, and we're gonna say we want D to be, eventually we're gonna make this be a variable, and it's gonna be a, depend on the location, but for now just get an output. Each path is gonna be the circle path. That's the shape, and then we're also gonna give it an attribute of transforming it. So this is going to be the X and Y coordinates from above. Translate, and then X position. Is that how you do it? Oh. Okay, so when you want to use parts of the data from our build data up here, you have to say D transform and then use D dot to use those variables. Okay, something is wrong. Okay, here we go. This looks really ugly, but here are all our circles. So it seems like we need to multiply. We need to make the spacing a little bit bigger so we can see what's going on. So let's say X month times space, and then times space. Our space up here, remember we just made that 25. So let's see what this does. Okay, woo, look. Okay, cool. We're getting somewhere. When I explained this the first time, I did a pretty bad job, so I'm here as future Erin to explain this a little bit better. So this is showing what we have right now, and it's color-coded by year, and you can see the first year, it starts at 5, which is May, because that's when I was born, But we actually want it to look more like this, which starts at 5, and then it keeps each year of my life in the same row. So my first year of life, my second year of life, third, and so on and so forth. But this is what we have still, and these are the equations that are printing this out. So the first thing we're going to do is easy. We're just taking the X position and shifting it back 5 spaces. So I'm creating this variable called start month, which is going to be 5, and subtracting that, but then adding 1 back because we want the 5 to just be in that first column. So now it's 5 minus 5 plus 1 times space, which is 25, so in the first column. So now months 5 through 12 look good, but months 1 through 4 are funky. Because remember, we actually want them to be up and over. So we're going to create an if statement to deal with months 1 through 4. So we'll say if the month is less than our start month, which is 5, then make the X position something special and also the Y position. Okay, so using 1 as an example, we want it to be shifted over 8 slots. So all we really need to do is say d.month plus 8 times space. The year we just want shifted up 1 more, so instead of subtracting 1993, we're going to subtract 1994. Yeah, there we go. That is going to give us what we want. So here's what it looks like in the code. You first just define those 2 X and Y positions, and then you have your if statement, and it will only enter in that if statement if it's a special case. In the rest of the video, I did it a little bit different, so just ignore that if you see it. It still works, but it's just different. And yeah, if you want to check the code out more, I'll have it linked below. Okay, back to Erin, who is very excited because she just figured this out. Okay, now it's formatted right. Woo! Ooh. Okay, what's next? Let's do the shapes now. We know that we want the shapes to be based off the city. But right now, the city is just this text. Like, we kind of need it to be an index of some sort so that we can then directly map it to the shape. So the first step there is to get a list of the distinct cities that we even have in our file. Then we'll like index those, and then we'll make a function to get that index and map it to the shapes. So we're gonna go back to the calculation section, and we're going to find the distinct cities in our data set. Equals, okay, so this is just some syntax that I learned from Shirley. A way to kind of see even what that did was we can say console.log distinct cities, and then when we run this code, now hidden in our drawing, if you right click it and you say inspect, you can go to the console and see a bunch of errors. 12 log entries are not shown. Oh, wow, that was just because the P was capitalized. Okay, so now you can see we have our list of our 12, wait, what? 9. Why did I think we had 12? Whatever. All right, so we have 10 different cities. So now we're gonna make this function that is going to get city into a index. So this is gonna be find city index, and we use this function called scale band. The domain is going to be our distinct cities. The range is going to be in another array, and the smallest one is going to be 0, and then the biggest one is going to be distinct cities dot length. Okay, so now when we go back down here, we can say instead of our place index being just 1, we can say it's going to be find city index, and then we'll enter in d.place. And then down here, instead of just saying, oh, make it a circle path no matter what, we're gonna say D. Okay, so we know we have our array of shapes. Where did that go? Up here, my paths. There's 12 in here, so since we only have 9 cities, it's fine. It'll just be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, blah, blah, blah. So we're gonna do my paths and then use like the indexing function to pick what shape it's gonna be. So my paths, and then we'll say d.place index. Oh, I forgot to do the whole glue. Why you do this to me? Okay, it was really dumb why it wasn't working. When I was doing it here, this P was capitalized. So it was looking for a capital P place in our data, and it just needed to be lowercase. Okay, so then when you run this, oh, this is kind of cute already. Okay, so something you could do now, if you didn't like a certain shape that was assigned to a particular thing, you could swap around the order of the shapes in the array, but I don't feel like doing that. So I think I'm just gonna leave it like this. The last part to just make it really pretty and cute is gonna be, we're gonna do adder and fill, just like we did at the very beginning. But we're gonna use this cool function called, okay, D3 scale chromatic. So it takes an index and then it makes it into a pretty color thing. So for Ben's I did cool tones, and for mine I kind of want to do warm tones. So I'm thinking that we'll do, I like this, we're gonna say D. So this output is going to be a, instead of just black, it's gonna be like the code to the color. Ideally we would just be able to do D dot place index, but this will give us a number between 0 and 9, and this function only accepts numbers between 0 and 1. So let's say we divide it by 9. I mean, let's see what this gives us. Oh yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, what if we did like shift it over a little bit, so we did plus 0.1. Oh, it just keeps getting better. I like it when it's darker, I think. Oh, yeah. Oh my god, this is cute. Okay, so now what I did also was create an index, or like a legend. So let me just do that really quick. So now we have our image, and the cool thing about this is we can download it as an SVG. If we were bougie, we would pull up our Adobe Illustrator, but we don't have that here. So a free option is Inkscape. Final stretch, folks. Oh my god, I can't believe it. This is literally taking me all day. It's 5 p.m. I just created kind of a duplicate of the file that I used for Ben's. And, oh, let me change this to say 28. And then we can drag in our SVG. Cool. Oh boy. I'm still like learning how to use this software. Like I feel like a newborn baby trying to tell it what I want it to do. Okay, so I want to scale these the same. I don't know how big they need to be. Okay. How about now? Oh yeah, that's good enough. Okay. Cute! Okay, now we're gonna drag this over here. Okay. She done. Export PNG. Okay, cool. I can't believe we're done here. Truly, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. I feel like not a lot of people would want to sit and listen to this, so that if you did, I feel like you really love me, and or you really love coding and things. So yeah, I just really appreciate it. And thanks for letting me share about things that I love to do. Okay, I feel like I need a nap now. Let me know if you try to do it. I'll put my Observable link in the description if you want to check it out. Okay, goodbye.